Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is a very wet and rainy Monday afternoon. Very windy as well, and just the gloominess and rottenness of the weather, I'm sure, has just confirmed for a lot of our people that we're getting tired of being in the same place. At least I am. But this enforced inactivity is what we need to be doing, and I trust the science, and the science says it's working. The science says it will continue to work. That's just my position on it. So, welcome. What I'd like to do, as usual, is to talk to folks about the week past, the week coming up. And we are now well past the midpoint of the course. And in week 5, you looked at very, very major issue, which is, do sport enterprises, I don't want to say franchises because they can be independent entities, do they help the economic health of a community? And it depends very much on the size of the community and how we interpreted that. But as you can see, the jury was out a little bit. Most people thought it did help, and in some we had the opposite reaction, that it wasn't really significant. What I really noticed, though, is when I went through all your discussions and I managed to respond to most of you, it's something I really think I need to talk about. And that is, I would like everybody to, when you approach an issue of the size of that question, is to go beyond the surface. Go beyond what you really think are just the quick issues that come up. And, oh yeah, it's obvious. They'll generate some economic activity. Let's go look at it. Yeah, it's going to be good for the community. Well, what type of economic activity is it generating? What is the quality of the jobs does it generate? What is the underlying health of the community that we're putting it into, or where it already exists, or maybe moving to? What are the long-term implications? What are the third and fourth order consequences? That's really the point of this exercise. You couldn't really be wrong because, as you see, the experts can't agree on it. But the idea is, don't just go with your knee-jerk reaction, and that's going to be something I'm going to talk about in a few minutes when I talk about week 6. So the discussions were very good, and some were very detailed, and some I think probably could have shown a little bit more digging, and I'm just being blunt and honest with you. But the whole idea is to help us expand our thinking and to understand that economics is the type of subject that you have to approach from a multitude of directions, and to really understand the long and short-term consequences by asking, yeah, well, what next? What next? What next? How many times do you ask why something is? Okay, so that's one point. I will begin reviewing today the midterm exercises. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you found it fun. Hope you found it entertaining. For a few details about the reality of the exercise, as I said, I really came up with it a number of years ago, and when I was writing it, there's a great irony. As I told you, a student was able to run it by an actual NBA owner. And at the time I wrote it, his particular team was almost the inspiration for this particular exercise. His particular team was the Washington Wizards, okay? And that owner is named Mr. Ted Leonsis, who also owns the Washington Capitals of the NHL. And I think I told you I would give you what his response to the question was. Basically, he said it depended on which sport it was. And he looked at the character of the fan base, the number of games, how things were developing, the nature of the sport beyond the ownership of the two teams. And his answers were, he would go for the playoffs in basketball, he would go for the draft picks in hockey. Very interesting, but his analysis was based on the character of the fan bases and what he was trying to do. In one, he was trying to build a fan base, that was hockey, and in basketball, he had one, and he felt he needed to service that fan base directly. So it was a very interesting thing, but it was based on the Wizards, and I hope you found it interesting. Kind of tough in this climate when there is no NBA season right now. Usually when I ask this question and it's in term 5 here, you find that that's a very live issue going on right there. There's always 1 or 2 teams, or maybe 4 or 5 teams that are involved in that very situation, and you can get your hands on it and make it very, very almost live. So that was one of the things that was interesting. As we go forward this week, now we're really shifting gears a little bit. We're going to go into a topic that obviously interests me very, very much, which is college sports. And when we talk about college sports, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to, get all our opinions in one direction, aren't they? So please understand, I respect opinions. But here's one I just referred to when I was looking back at week 5. Here's where I have to make that request to you. Don't just go with the obvious when you answer some of the questions, when you consider some of the discussions, when you do consider some of the issues. What do I mean by the obvious? The obvious is D1 men's basketball and football. Okay, there are a lot more college sports than those two. Unfortunately, those are the two that pay for everything, right? Those are ones that have revenue generation opportunities and histories. But when you start looking at things and you just don't dig deeply, you tend to forget, well, there's more than the Power 5, right? There's more than the 65 teams in that team. There's more than the group of 5. In Division I basketball in men's, there's 300 teams or more. Division I men's football, there's 128, I believe, teams. It's a big business. It's a big group. It loses a lot of money. Or does it? Because what about Division II? What about Division III? How do those teams and those schools react and use athletics? What does it mean to them? It's a very, very complex issue. So what I'm really asking people is, don't just dive in with what you think you know. Find out what you do know. And the site I really wish you would go to, and I think I've gotten it into the unit, but I'll tell you right here, is called EADA, Equity and Diversity in Athletics. All right? Look it up. It's a publication of the Department of Education, and it is required reporting for all schools that participate in college athletics and receive any level of federal funding anywhere for their institution. And in that site, the EADA numbers, you're going to find just about every bit of information you wanted to know about most teams, most schools. It's going to tell you about their finances, about their participation, about how many sports they sponsor, how much they pay their coaches, how many athletes they have, what does their scholarship situation look like. All of this information is there. Get familiar with that before you answer some questions. I think it might give you a different perspective. So, as you go forward into this, please don't ignore Divisions 2 and 3. Don't ignore the smaller half of Division 1. Don't just go with the obvious. Dig. Look into what the question asks, what the questions ask, and see if you can't find a well-informed answer. Because I think it's going to be more fun that way. I think we'll learn a lot more, and we'll find an awful lot more to discuss. Okay? So thank you very much. Thanks for sticking with me during this participation time when everything is online and everything consumes a lot of our time and our effort and our energy. And I'm looking forward to this because, like I said, I am a very long time ago, but I'm an ex-college athlete. I've been coaching in college for the last dozen years. I have written fairly extensively about college athletics. I've researched it. I have some pending publications about it. It's a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. So I am going to enjoy working with you on this subject. Okay? Thank you very much.